Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Silver Tears Tarot, and welcome to today's reading. So we're going to go ahead and just go along with the story and see what wants to come out. Remember, yesterday we noted we still had your person in the temporary energy of kind of a moment of clarity, where you can see like you've taught them something about happiness and they want to be able to use what they've learned. But even though we see that energy has lightened up a little bit from maybe what we were seeing a couple days ago, they still feel like their hands are tied. They aren't necessarily ready to make a move. So let's see what's going on today. Let's see what this has moved into. So this will be a general reading for this collective, as always. Won't resonate with everyone, shouldn't resonate with everyone. If it resonates with you, consider hitting like, hitting subscribe, and check out some of the other ones, because there are this has been basically a continuous saga since I came out here. Sometimes I do pick up piles and split the audience into different pieces, but it still ends up being kind of the same story because it's the same collective. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at the energy that is in that emotional and energetic backdrop today. Also, the energy that's happening between the two of you, heavy on them. And I feel like that's oftentimes what comes out here in this first portion of the reading. But it gives you that context. A little bit of context to understand the rest of the things that come out. So that's, if you find that this is the sort of day where things look like the universe got up on the wrong side of the bed and everything's difficult, that puts things into context when you look elsewhere. But it's not that kind of day. We have the Seven of Swords here in the reverse. Now, the Seven of Swords is a card of deception. It's a card of not necessarily doing things for the right reasons and being mired in fear. But in the reverse like this, it actually kind of feels like the reverse of that. The only thing I would say is it also feels a little bit disorganized, and it may be that's just kind of the energy of the day. You're trying to figure out what you've accomplished, and even with your to-do list, can't quite get your bead on it. So you got the Queen of Pentacles in the reverse, which is basically that feeling that I was just talking about. It's that feeling of can't quite get a feel for the day, even when I employ the usual tactics. So it's a day of not quite being organized, but also with the Seven of Swords in the reverse, I don't get that that's necessarily an issue. Ooh, Ten of Pentacles in the reverse might be an issue, though. Okay, so it really depends on the rest of the energy that your person is in as to how this plays out, because it's not necessarily anything that is inherently bad. There is change to someone's way of life. I feel like this is heavy on your person. Could be a little bit of something going on in both of your lives there, but you've got change happening, and I feel like it's happening at a time where you're not really feeling ready for it. Or again, it's like even when you employ the usual tactics, you still feel a little disorganized. But again, with the Seven of Swords in the reverse, there's that feeling that everything is going to turn out okay. And that feeling is not always there. So I feel like that's valuable. Definitely something to think about. That Seven of Swords in the reverse is kind of a save the day sort of energy. And it saved the day without ever really raising your heart rate, With the Seven of Cups. Okay, so we have the Seven of Cups, we have the Star, we have the Nine of Swords, and and the Seven of Pentacles. Sometimes I'm not supposed to take all the cards. Other times I am. This one was one of those times. So I think this is actually the order that we read them. So with the Star and the Seven of Cups, these two are kind of coming out together. It's about figuring out that you have choices, but that those choices are part of what makes this experience a little bit discombobulated and overwhelming. It's a little bit less organized, partially because there are more pieces than are needed. It's like one of those word problems where you're given more information than is required to solve the problem, which is like life. I mean, and this is one of those times where it just feels like it's overwhelming, and it's maybe a little bit harder to isolate the right factors. But there is this overall feeling that you're heading in the right direction. We keep seeing the Star come out, and honestly, that's a great card to see a lot of, especially in this context, because it's not just hope, it's also moving toward, so people's concept of destiny varies, but this is about moving in a direction that is healthy and happy and correct. That's, if it's you believing in destiny and saying moving toward your destiny, then that's what this is. With the Seven of Cups, though, it's not a simple movement because there are so many paths to get to different places. The good news is most of them are just more or less circuitous paths to the same point. So you got the Nine of Swords, and this is the part where it starts to be a little bit difficult energy. And luckily, you've got the training of the Seven of Pentacles, the investment, that foundational investment of the Seven of Pentacles. So there is something where you are being kind of put into a situation where it's uncomfortable. And it's kind of like child's play to you, though. That's the thing with the Seven of Pentacles here. The Nine of Swords says, oh no, here comes something very difficult. This is the reason that Seven of Swords in the reverse feels like kind of that save the day energy. It's got the same feel as the Seven of Pentacles, honestly. In that it makes it so that even though you are confronted with something that feels like you can't get organized and maybe seems like a sort of a ponderous and unpleasant situation, your training or what you bring to the situation is going to be sufficient to solve it or to resolve it. There's something like, it's almost like things are getting, I'm just going to use an example. Things get crazy at work, but you've been through some crazy things just like that. And so when you see it, you're able to say, oh, okay, you know what? I understand what I'm seeing and I'm not going to overreact. There's no reason to overreact because it's just it's a use of energy you could be putting elsewhere. And honestly, there's a lot of risk of that. There's a lot of energy that could be being put elsewhere. But then with this confidence in the background, it's like feeling that I'm going to be fine vibe. And this is great because in your person, we've seen a lot of a feeling of like a depression that almost has been weighing them down. And here in the last couple of days, we've seen that sort of evaporate a little bit. And here, I don't feel like this is quite the same energy as what we've seen in the last couple of days, but it does still have a little bit more of that openness. It's still lightened up somewhat. So I feel like that natural tendency that they have to resolve something. And again, this is shared energy, but it's heavy on them. There's this investment in the self that's going to be useful. Some sort of thing where it's like, oh, look, an unpleasant situation, but it's one I trained for all my life, let's say. So that absolutely happens. And go for that. If that's you, if it's one of those things where you have these defense mechanisms that look like, oh, I don't know, research and, use it. Like, use it. Even if you get past the things that create the problems for you and trigger you, keep the skills that you got from it. Like, that's super useful. The Six of Wands, this is about, this ties in nicely with both of these sevens here. The Seven of Pentacles, the Seven of Swords in reverse, Six of Wands in the upright. This is, and the Star, all of it. Moving very much toward victory, toward a positive outcome. This is a good energy because it's not just movement toward that positive outcome, it's awareness of that movement toward a positive outcome. So we have the Five of Cups. Here's a good attitude with a lot of perspective being presented with a decision. So it may seem like today is a little heavy on the decisions or this energy. We know it may extend a little beyond today, but it's heavy on the decisions, not simple ones, but ones that you are, again, totally ready to make. They are totally ready to make. And I think it's interspersed in there with a couple of particularly difficult ones. But I don't see there's a need to, there's a knowing that there's no need to move quickly and a balance that feels like a rainy day. Interesting. A balance. This is the Temperance card. It feels like balance. It feels like a rainy day. It feels like a very comfortable, like drumming of the rain. But with the Queen of Swords, not making any sudden movements because they know they don't have to. Or this may be more of the shared energy, but I feel like it's a little heavier on them. But there's awareness that there's no need to move super quickly. And even though it does seem like there are an awful lot of decisions happening, with this Five of Cups in the reverse, this is this is a great energy because it matches so nicely with the rest of what we have here. This is calm, cool, and collected kind of energy compared with some of what we've seen recently in the past. And this Five of Cups, again, what I really love about this is one that I love to see come out in the reverse for you, because it has everything to do with being aware of what's happened in the past and having that as part of the perspective, but still with the knowledge. And here she's taking the cups that are opportunities. So okay, to back up for those of you who haven't heard this story a thousand times, when the Five of Cups, the way that it is often depicted, there is going to be a person who is feeling very down. There's shame that comes into it, like self-doubt, and there are these cups that are lying down and they can't hold liquid. They may be broken. And that's what they're focused on. And behind them somewhere, there will be these other cups that are still standing and full of opportunity and full of, the ability for transformation. Okay. And so when it is in the upright, it really does feel heavy on focus on the negative. Whereas when it's in the reverse, it's awareness of, yes, I recognize those things happened. But here you see her grabbing the cups of transformation and opportunity. And so this is an incredibly productive sort of energy, but like productive in the best possible way. You wish the energy behind you was like this more often. I mean, that is, this is the sort of thing that as a reader, you don't get to come out and say very often. So this is a nice energy behind the situation. So now let's see kind of what's happening with them, because remember, they still, like I was saying, they still feel like their hands are tied, but they don't feel like they can necessarily move towards you, but yet we saw they were trying to make sure they maintain control of the situation, control of the narrative. I just dropped a card. They're still flailing with their values, and the cards fell face down. They're still flailing with their values a little bit, like we were seeing. There's that feeling that their partnership has been stabbed by their values, or stabbed in their values somehow. Their partnership, what was the line? It came out in yesterday's reading. Yeah, their partnership has been stabbed by their values. That was kind of an interesting thing that I don't think I'd ever put words in that order before. But they had kind of this disappointment in themselves, feel like they're carrying a load a little bit too much emotionally. 9 of Wands. So that emotional weight, they're still kind of carrying a little bit. There's a 10 of Wands under as kind of... it's that feeling of carrying that emotional load. In this case, it is just an honorable mention, but it is exactly what we were getting at. The resistance that comes from the 9 of Wands is the direct result of that 10 of Wands that was right in there behind it. Fascinating. So they, even in this great energy, and they do a good job in this energy. I get the sense that they do pretty well in the energy of the day. I just also see that they're feeling a little concerned, a little bit uptight maybe. That is not quite as calm as what we maybe saw when they were in the midst of that moment of clarity and that energetic blip that we saw a couple days ago there. But they're not in bad shape here. This doesn't seem bad. Yeah, we have the Sun also. So they, it's like they have had their head, their face in a pillow, and they have recently looked up to see what things were like, and the sun was out and everything was bright and beautiful. And they got scared and put their face back in the pillow, but now they know that bright, beautiful picture is there. And maybe that's a weird metaphor, or because we've got the 8 of Pentacles, which would suggest that they've had their head in this pillow for an awfully long time, and that they're a different person now than they were when they first put it in there. So that is maybe not the best example, but it's the idea of them having kind of looked up and seen the positivity once again, and recognized that they are actually foundationally different than they were the last time they had that experience, or the last time they considered having this experience. Still so much resistance, but in this energy, I would say just about anything is possible. They could have some pretty good healing in this. So I feel like here's that Ten of Pentacles again in the upright. There's an ability or an opportunity to build something positive within the union between the two of you. This is a physical realm. So this is an opportunity to come back and say, hey, I botched an apology, or in some cases, I haven't even delivered that apology yet. But for them to be able to come back and say, I've been feeling the air of apology, or I botched this apology, and I just wanted to make things right. You know, it's a feeling of making things right, but it creates kind of a solid foundation so that that tower that wants to fall, that we keep seeing that sense of a tower that wants to fall, and your person has been very resistant to that. I don't think that resistance is gone, but I think this is a good step in the right direction as far as them moving where they need to go. And they do have a desire to do that. They have a new desire to do that, and because they peeked up and saw the sun, because they peeked up and for whatever reason they got something reminded them of the happiness of the two of you together. Something reminded them of a time they kind of pushed down in their memory. And then, like I said, with this Eight of Pentacles, they found that they're not the same person that they once were. They know a little bit more about themselves. They understand a little bit more. Secrets have come out. So we've got the High Priestess and the Moon both in reverse. And that is, that's a lot of knowledge. And the thing is, it's along with this resistance, unfortunately, it has also caused them. So this is the King of Swords. It's causing a little bit of a sense, and we don't want these. It causes a little bit of a sense of overload. That's what I'm noticing. It's like a sense of overload, but it's a little bit different than it was. So they recognize this is an opportunity to recognize how far they've come and what problems they've solved. Here with the Devil card in the reverse, this is indicative of the problems they've solved and the distance they've traveled emotionally. And, you know, we keep seeing that Two of Wands come out in these readings since the beginning of this channel. The Two of Wands has been coming out, and it has been about an emotional distance. So the thing is, they're not done. Like, they're not done traveling the emotional distance. If this person were to come to you right now, what you would discover, among the things you would discover is, yes, they are very different than they were, but we've seen that this person will be different every time you see them. Because they are moving so quickly right now. They're not standing still, even though in some cases they wish they could, or they don't really wish they could, though. They wish they could get out of an uncomfortable place. And they're being held in an uncomfortable place. But they've made a lot of progress. Just maybe not enough to get past some of this resistance. And the thing is, if they don't have the experience of having to test that periodically, having to test these secrets that come out, they won't figure out how far they've come. But they're not getting the full impact of what they've learned because of this inability to back up and look at the big picture. They are not completely devoid of, you know, okay, so two things. They are getting some benefit from this. I said here that they're not able to really back up and get the full benefit, but they are getting some benefit, because with this Three of Swords in the reverse, that very specifically says they are getting some of the benefit of what they've learned. However, the issue that I'm seeing is they still have to incorporate, like, they aren't incorporating all of the lessons. They are able to look at some of it and say, okay, this no longer hurts so badly. I can actually look at it. But a lot of this is like a light that's still too bright to look at. And so when they run across something that they don't know how to handle, or something that they feel like they what they tend to do is jump in and try and control it, and be very strong about it. But this could not have come out at a better time. So here's the Ten of Wands, but in the reverse. Ten of Wands in the reverse talks about that burden. It talks about carrying that heavy emotional load, and we see that we saw yesterday that the emotion is catching up to them, okay? And here, despite their efforts to control it, we still see that their emotions are catching up to them, and it's weighing them down in a way that it works against them, and it makes it difficult for them to come back to this happiness. Yeah, they have a tendency with the Ace of Wands here to, it's a self-destructive sort of tendency. And I mean, the self-destruction comes in many forms. Sometimes it's just a matter of not taking advantage of an opportunity when it becomes available. And I feel like that's the case with some of them. Okay, yeah, we have the King of Cups and the Queen of Cups, though, popped out next to each other. You guys saw that just perfectly. And so it's the King and Queen of Cups. It feels very much like the emotion between the two of you has started to thaw. We know that for March, we saw a blooming energy, sort of emotional energy. But this is, I mean, it's like you guys have to ask if you're ready for this, you know? I mean, because what this could be happening on many levels. So what you're ready for, it kind of, there's a lot of opportunity here. So I kind of thought March was going to be a quieter month based on what we saw, where there was an attempt to not have communication as much, to not have the love go back and forth. And so here, though, I'm seeing it flowing, and I'm seeing that, I know we're getting ready to get into your advice over here in a moment, but the very first thing that I see coming out is that you need to make sure that you're able to give and receive love in equal measure. And because we've noticed in the past that your person has a difficult time with both ends of that. You maybe have an easy time giving love, but not as an easy time of receiving it. So this may be a time to work on that, but be aware there may be some triggering in here. Because I feel a little bit like this Queen of Cups is coming in with a little of that reversal energy that you often see in the reversal, where there's kind of a codependency or a tendency toward it. It may not go in as codependency, but it could shift to that relatively quickly. And I'm not saying it's necessarily you. It could be either one of you, and it has to do with this resistance here, because this resistance is mostly theirs, but maybe not entirely theirs. We'll look a little bit more into this. So I want to take this King and Queen and just take those and expand on that when we get into the extended, because those are, like, when they came out, they felt heavier than the rest of the cards, and everything here starts to feel like backdrop. And it's like, yes, there's a lot of opportunity. Yes, there is. They have more information, but they're not necessarily able to use it all. Boom, King and Queen of Cups, deal with it. And I was kind of like, oh, we're dealing with it now. So let's look into your focus area, and then when we get into the extended, we'll look to see what this King and Queen of Cups is all about, because it feels very front and center sort of energy. All right, so this, when we look at you, what we typically like to look at is like your focus areas given the rest of what's on the table here. You know, we talked moments ago about how your person was kind of being held in place so as to, in like an uncomfortable place, so as to learn a little bit more about something, but it's maybe something they don't enjoy or they don't feel real comfortable with. The wheel here is the concept of that same sort of thing happening to you. I think you're okay with it, though. I don't get the sense that you are as urgently needing things to change. Something is definitely unfinished. I see you acknowledging this, but again, I don't see you panicking about it. And I think that's what comes in with this wheel. So that doesn't always come in with the wheel. Oh, but here we go. With the Princess of Wands, it's like you are loading your next move. And it is a big one, you know. So I feel like that's part of why it seems like you don't mind being held in place, because you need a little bit of time to load. But this, I don't know. The feeling of the world in the reverse, it feels like there's something that, that's another thing that makes you both simultaneously want to move forward and make a resolution to something, but also because you are building up to something, it's like you need the time. You need the time to rest up or prepare. Ooh, let's see here. What did I drop? Okay, so I dropped the Nine of Wands, again with the resistance. Remember how I was saying I thought this resistance was maybe not all them? there is some resistance that you're going to want to look into with yourself. So this is part of what you're being held in place to see. Also realize that you need a course correction in some small way. This is not a huge course correction, and it's not even one that's like an emergency course correction. It is just look for the thing in your life that it's like you need to drop something or you need to pick something up. There's something that it results in a course correction that needs to happen, but also watch for yourself to be a little bit contrary, a little bit tendency to not want to do something, like you are uncharacteristically opposed to something that seems like it would be a good idea. Let's see here. So this is the next one, the Tower. Okay, so with the Tower in the reverse, this kind of feels like that same resistance here. Don't judge yourself for this. This is a Tower that feels uncomfortable and honestly looks like it's going to take a long time to get to the other side of. And so whereas I think that is true, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. It's like you don't have to have your entire life torn down. And we see the stability here, and we see the truth. Go toward the stability, go toward the truth. This is an individual sort of situation. It's going to cause you to end up with essentially an open door, something that is open to you that never has been before. So you're going to have to learn how to work with whatever that is. It's going to change something for you. So there's a lot of resistance to doing that. Like I said, you have that sense of loading your next move and knowing that something isn't yet complete. There's a lot of movement that happens here, and I don't feel like you're in a rush with any of it, and I think that's perfect. I get the sense up here that you aren't in a rush with it, but I get the sense here that you don't need to be, because it's not like you're suspending some portion of your life, unable to move forward because of a change that you need to make. But there is definitely something that you need to consider. Again, you get kind of that advice to be close to yourself, be doing the prayer, the meditation. With the Ace of Swords, it really is about truth. Now, the Two of Cups, all it is saying is take a break from focusing on this relationship and the qualities and boundaries of it for the moment, because we're going to get into this King and Queen of Cups thing, but there has also been a lot in the last few readings about doing individual work. But this door that gets opened for you, I think that is particularly interesting. I'll be interested to watch that play out for you as we get into some of the subsequent readings, because if you watch, there's kind of a story playing out over here in this side of the reading as well. I ask basically the same question over here, regardless of what I do around these. So this is always going to be kind of the lay of the land. What's the context in which we need to take the rest of the reading? Here goes the rest of the reading, and then this is what do you do about it? What's your area of focus? Your area of focus is watch for that new door to open. Watch for something that it's like a defense that you can allow to fall. You've got some defenses that are up. We definitely see indication of that. There's a new perspective coming, and it's going to be requiring you to have a sense of trust even before something materializes. So the best way for you to have trust is for you to acknowledge that things are going to go, it's that Seven of Swords in the reverse over there. Things are going to be just fine, and don't worry about it, and don't be too attached to the outcome. If it goes poorly, you're going to pick it up and deal with it in a way that makes good sense. So, I don't worry about you, but I do watch how this is developing, because this over here, what I learn about you and what I learn about this collective is what makes me not worry about you, because I do see that you're going to be fine. Over here, though, let's find out what's going on with this King and Queen of Cups and why it just kind of fell like a showstopper right there in the middle of the reading. So we're going to get into that when we get into the extended. The link is down below if you would like to follow me there, and I would love to see you there, or I will see you again in tomorrow's reading.